What up, everybody, and welcome back to Get Your Geek On spoiler review of season one of House of the Dragon. I'm Robert, and I do not have my regular running partner with me here. Aaron could not be here, but I had to bring in two people to replace him. So please welcome with me my two fantastic co-hosts, people that have been, you might have seen on a video here and there for Get Your Geek On. They've been part of our collaboration for a while. I've got Kristin, say hello.
Hello.
And Keith, what's up, man?
Hello.
All right. Well, as I said, this is a spoiler review. And so we are going to assume if you are watching this video, you have seen season one of House of the Dragon. And I'm not going to give any more spoiler warnings because I've already said that we are going to talk about the show, everything that happened on season one. We will not get into spoilers from the book if anyone has read it. I know I haven't. And Kristin, I know you haven't. Keith, have you read the source material for this series, the Fire and Blood?
I have not.
Okay, well, good. Then we're at no risk of spoilers for future seasons or anything like that. But I know that Kristin and I have both seen Game of Thrones. And so I assume you have also seen that, Keith?
Seen all of it.
Seen all of it. Loved some of it, right?
Like everybody else.
Yeah, exactly. But I think we're gonna dive into this season, and I'm just gonna, again, we're assuming you've seen the show, so we're not gonna do recap of what's going on. But I kind of want to start with just a discussion, I guess, of some of the major themes of the show that were really around bloodlines, and what does it mean to be a woman in a patriarchal society, and different things like that were really kind of the focus of certainly this first season, where we have our central conflict of basically that a woman has been named heir to the Iron Throne, and whether or not that is going to be something that the realm is okay with. So Kristin, I'll start with you. How did you feel about the season overall, and especially as it explored those themes of kind of the patriarchal society with women, and also just kind of that whole theme of bloodlines and what that means?
I feel so far during the show that, oh gosh, a lot of it's frustrating.
Okay.
It's just full of frustration. Here's these two women, and one currently holds power and one's promised to hold power, and they're just at a constant battle between each other, and they're both frustrated because, it's just there, and it's both theirs at the same time, it feels like, almost. So frustrating.
Yeah, I think that's something the show did really well, is kind of painted both sides as you understand why they have the perspective that they do. You understand why you understand why Alicent thinks her son should be on the throne, and why she's frustrated with, Rhaenyra having bastard children and still, being able to do whatever she wants while she's, kind of suffered in silence and just done all of it. And my son, is a legitimate, and he should be. He's the firstborn son of the king. Why shouldn't he be? And then, of course, you have Rhaenyra, who's, been named the heir and had that reaffirmed many times over and over again.
Yeah.
And so she has that same, kind of like, well, it should be me too. So yeah, no, I think
on top of the frustration that was once her childhood friend.
Absolutely.
And it feels like there's just a massive betrayal there, even though they want to, ultimately still be friends, but there's just no way and no chance that would ever be.
Yeah, they both feel betrayed by the other one at different points of the series and different things. So what about you, Keith? What are you kind of feeling about that overall kind of those themes and what that means?
With the patriarchal theme.
Yeah.
Alicent, it's definitely trying to, like, to me, put you try to put you in that situation. It's like catch-22 city, basically. Allison is forced to try to obey her father and please him and help the family, while at the same time being forced to, seemingly betray her like childhood friend, and then the repercussions leading up to that, and even throughout the series, as they spread it out, you kind of see little seedlings of them trying to rebuild that or recover that from one way or another, and then something stupid, usually caused by brooding men or cutting, somebody trying to go create power. A patriarchal, power greedy, hungry guy causes another rift between them for one reason or another. So
or generational pieces where it's like they have passed down their animosity and hatred to their kids, or they've been influenced by like, for instance, Sir Kristin Cole, or different things where they're like they've been poisoned against one another in some cases, and it just kind of, I don't know. I think one thing that really stood out to me as I was watching it is just kind of the inevitability of it all. It's just like, as soon as Aegon is born, I mean, that's what Otto knows. That's what everyone knows, is that now there is this woman that you've said, I want her to be my heir, but now you have a firstborn son who has always been the traditional heir in this kind of in this land. And so it immediately just, it's so inevitable. There's going to be that conflict, and I love the way the show, as you said, kind of gives them opportunities to try and like reconcile and rebuild, but every time that it feels like maybe they could, it's undercut, the rug gets pulled out from under them for whatever reason, and it just like, there's never a chance for this to go any way other than the way it goes at the end. And I think
the patriarchy is interfering every single moment too.
Oh yeah.
Even Allison said it herself in that one part where she's like, you were planning this behind my back the whole entire time. So while these two women are constantly having things that they want to go their way, here are all these men, the patriarchy, going behind their backs and planning things without telling them, even though they are the ones that are supposed to be ruling.
Well, and that's mirrored in the season finale, because that's of course in episode 9 where we get the focus on Alicent, and then it's mirrored in episode 10 with Rhaenyra, where she's dealing with like this horrific childbirth, and in the other room all the men are making all the plans and doing all the things,
the decisions,
and she's like, no, like it's just so it's a really interesting thing where you have basically the men on both sides are like, let's just get this done. Let's start our war and let's kill everyone. And
you see her give Damon this sharp look. She's like, who the fuck do you think?
And it's basically Alicent and Rhaenyra are the only two that are trying to resolve this without a war. Clearly that's not going to happen. There's still going to be a war, but they're at least making that effort, even though it is a doomed one. So
well, even Rhaenys, when she had that opportunity where she could have ended it all, but
yes, she did.
I was talking to him, Robert, about how frustrated I was that she didn't do that. I know it's not her job, but oh my god, it was so easy. It was just right there, right in front of her, and like you could have just made it so easy for everybody.
Like I'm going to make that meme right now, where it's like end credits, season finale.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. Series over. We don't need to. Here you go. Put the crown on Rhaenyra's head and we're done. But yeah, I think that talking about how those kind of final 2 episodes mirrored one another kind of made me want to talk about the structure of the show as well, which is one of my big complaints, because I think the last 4 episodes, so starting in the episode that is like Laena's funeral, that kind of leads to Aemond, claiming the dragon, getting attacked and all that, and then building to, the whole thing with the King's Last Stand, where he's like reaffirming Driftmark, the final 2 episodes. Those 4 episodes were like peak TV. They were so good. I did not love, especially the 10-year time jump, but how many jumps there were in the season. It just felt like we lost so many character moments, so many like story moments, that I was wishing we could have gone slower. I loved the way it ended. Those last 4 episodes, like I said, I think are amazing. But I did feel like we either needed to start the story at a different point, or we needed to let kind of that story breathe a little bit more. I don't
Would you
know.
have minded if there was more episodes, or?
I mean, definitely not. I thought back to like the first season of Game of Thrones, where the big event was Ned getting his head cut off at the end of episode 9, but there were no like major battles or like anything like that. And this show kind of followed a similar path, where the big kind of climactic event was the death of the king, and then how the two sides dealt with it. It just felt like the story building up to that, it was like they really wanted to establish the childhood relationship and all of the background, but we went over like 20 years over like 6 episodes, and like to me that was just too much, especially the 10-year jump. We lost so much time in there.
I feel like Rhaenyra had 20 babies.
Yeah.
Sorry, Keith, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say my wife and I talked about how quick it went last night. It was like 3 seasons into 1 season.
Yeah.
It was like, what was it, like 2 or 3 sets of actors?
Yeah, for some, I think the Valerian kids, Lena and Laenor, both had 3 actors. And like some of the other child actors, the Targaryen kids, I think those only had 2, but some of them might have had 3. And then our Alicent and Rhaenyra, obviously that was kind of the big recasting one because they were the main characters. And I thought both sets of actors did really well, or both sets of actresses. Like that was one thing that really stood out. But I think episode 6 for me, which was the first one with the new actors and the 10-year time jump, there were like so many questions that I had as I was watching the episode, specifically like, why is Sir Kristin Cole still a Kingsguard after he just murdered a dude like in cold blood? Like I don't understand what's happening with this. And obviously the Queen made some sort of, and they spun some story about how that guy had insulted him or whatever. They did something, but it was like, I need an explanation of why this guy is still allowed to just like be a Kingsguard when he's just murdering people. I don't know. Like, and I think that
around.
Yeah, and I think that unfortunately there were some of those actors that had like character, like beats that didn't necessarily make sense after the 10-year jump, that it was covered up by the acting. And I thought, unfortunately for Sir Kristin Cole, his were not. Like it was like I wasn't buying his like immediate sharp 180 turn.
Why didn't he have any like silvering going on in there? Like, do they have just for men in that universe?
Some of those people had like 0 aging whatsoever.
Everybody aged, but that guy, like he soaks in like magical mud every night.
Well, it's clearly that he's so righteous that he does not have to age at all. Yeah,
but he mostly becomes a non-existent character except for the one scene.
Well, I mean, once he's on Alicent's side, like you see him, especially in that episode 6 where he goads, the strong, I can't remember his first name, but the father of the 3 boys goads him into this fight, which then of course ultimately leads to kind of his death. That's kind of his big moment of the second half of the season for sure. And I mean, he was one of those characters, and Game of Thrones has always done this so well, where they just you have that character you love to hate, and absolutely like Sir Kristin Cole, like he started off and he's like hanging out with Rhaenyra, and you're like, oh, this guy's not so bad.
I wanted to like him so bad.
And man, once he makes that turn, I'm just like, every time he's on screen, I'm like, this smug. I just want to like wipe it off his face. I hate this guy. And I did appreciate that. But speaking of like characters you love to hate, I mean, we got to talk about Damon, played by Matt Smith.
God, he does such a good job.
He's just like the wild card, the Joker. You never know what he's going to do. I mean, I think in the book he's even referred to as the Rogue Prince because he's unpredictable, and you never know what he's going to do.
He's like psychologically frightening, and it's just like, oh my god.
Well, and he's completely unpredictable.
Yeah.
And I think my favorite moment of his, actually, and we can all share, I guess. But my favorite moment of his is when he takes the young Rhaenyra out on the town, and then basically very purposefully removes her hat to it's very clear he wants them to be seen. He wants people to see them together and know it was them, because he has this weird half-formed plan in his brain that he's going to get his brother to let him marry her, and like it doesn't work at all in that moment. But it's just one of those things where it's like, it doesn't go the way he intends. I think he's taken aback by how into it Rhaenyra is at first, and it's just like this whole thing where like his whole energy gets completely thrown off. And then the next morning he's just like, well, why don't you just let me marry her? Like, it's cool, right? We can do that. And I was just like, oh, Damon, oh, you beautiful, beautiful man. So what about you, Keith? Did you have any favorite Damon moments?
Well, what was always interesting to me is just to the point, like it's like they had it timed for him with the wild card aspect. It's just when he makes a couple of key decisions where like, all right, he's growing, he's doing this, and then he goes into full on BDSM choke mode, or something along those lines where I'm gonna go right back into my patriarchal mode and
Yeah.
take command here of this thing, or tell the kid to shut up. I don't care what she wants. It's like good, screwed up, good, just to keep you on your toes with that wild card aspect.
Yeah, for sure. What about you, Kristin? Any favorite Damon moments in particular?
Man, I don't know.
I gotta say another really cool.
I say all the moments, so he's just really.
Yeah, I was gonna
really
say
good.
another.
Yeah, I don't have any.
Great moment is when he, in the triarchy early in the season when he's like attacking the Crab King and he kind of goes in by himself. And,
yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah,
Leroy Jenkins.
Leroy. Yeah. But
and of course he had like the best line of the season. He can keep his tongue though.
Oh yeah, when he decapitates
Vaemond. Oh god, yeah.
Which I love in that moment as he's just like, say it. Just come on. Like, just ready. Say it. Yeah. It's like, we all know you want to say it. Just say it, and I'll just
triple dog dare you.
I always question in the back of my mind though when he's being like really humble, and then like, is he being for real, or is he just doing that just to do it? Like, I don't. I was questioning it because he's psychotic,
no, 100%. It's like, and that's where I think like to me, and I said this early in the season, I said this to a friend of mine, I was just getting off the charts Joker energy from him, because he's just like, like, especially you think like Dark Knight, where he's like, do I really seem like a guy with a plan? Like, he does though, like he has a plan, but he also just like, the plan went to crap, I'll just form a new plan, I'll just do something new, I'll just do something crazy. And it's just like, you never feel like I would never feel at all I guess safe around him, which then brings us to his number one fanboy, which is Aemond Targaryen, the second son of Alicent, who clearly wants to be Damon. Like, that is his entire life's ambition, is to be Damon. And I have to say, like, he was one of my favorite characters of the second half of the season. Like claiming that dragon and just being like, yeah, what's up? Like, I did it, bring it on. And then, of course he gets his eye gouged out, and then he's just pissed off about that for 3 episodes, where he's just like, I want your eye. Just give me your eye. Like, you're just
that's a legit thing to be pissed off about. I would say.
He picked up a rock and was going to bash their heads in first. So he's not blameless in this scenario.
No. I will predict that there will be a fight between Damon and Aemon, though.
Yeah,
I do want to say that. I want to say that there's possibly, I don't know how big of one, but I feel like they have the chemistry for one.
I would agree with that. But well, what do you were going to say something, Keith?
Well, I was gonna say if I can share my screen, I was
Oh yeah, sure.
point out. Well, as long as it wasn't affecting copyright stuff.
Yeah, as long as it's quick, right?
Oh yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I definitely really enjoyed the dynamic between the kids, where you have the strong boys, as they keep alluding to, and everyone's saying the unsaid thing. And I love Viserys, just 8 episodes of just downhill health, and he's just, all he wants is just for everybody to get along, everyone to just be cool. Like, it's so funny. And so yeah,
You played his decline of health really well too.
yeah, no, Patty Considine was the actor, and he does a great job.
Yeah.
Here, let me see if I can figure out this screen. There we go.
Yeah,
all participants. There we go.
there you go.
So Keith, what do you got to share with us?
Well, I was gonna say what I like how Amon turns into a basically a Bond villain right here. When I saw this grin, I said, "Well, this is the next Bond villain. He's just missing, a couple $1 billion in the bank so he can finance the next world takeover."
Sure.
And then it was definitely solidified when there we go. Where'd it go? Where'd the blue eye go? My bad.
Oh, we lost the sapphire.
I did.
But you know what I'm saying. When he gets that blue eye, there we go. My bad.
You're good.
Already fell.
So while we're waiting,
there
we go.
Right there. That's the perfect Bond villain reveal. It explains all of his hatred, and why he double crossed the MI6 and M or whatever.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
And then it culminates into him basically when he realizes he messed up. When he's about to find out. So
yeah,
I was expecting a mess up, but not that big of one.
He's gonna fly home, and his mom is gonna be very, very unhappy with what transpired.
Yeah.
Which I do have to say, so this is something that I found interesting, because I was kind of reading an article after the season finale, where actually in the source material, it's painted much more as just an on purpose brutal murder that Aemond, very, very on purpose, killed Luke, even went and down and retrieved his body so that he could pluck both of his eyes out as trophies, because he hated him so much and all this stuff. And I'm like, wow, that is intense, and that is certainly a character decision to go full on villain. They took it a different way, and I have to say, I'm kind of torn, because I think Aemond was portrayed as a very vengeful and villainous kind of guy for several episodes. So
I actually feel like it would have been better the other way.
It totally could have fit for him to do that. But I also felt like one of the themes they were trying to hammer home throughout this entire season is we are not in control of the dragons. That is an illusion. Whatever you think about the dragons, you're wrong, and dragons are going to dragon. And so clearly that was in support of that, was that this was more of, certainly he wanted to scare his nephew. He wanted to, establish dominance. He was bullying him, all those things. But did he really want it to come to that? Which I think is, again, an interesting thing to play with, because he knows this will start the war. If there was a reason that it wasn't going to be a war, if you kill the son of the the queen, the war is starting. There's no way around that.
I would be surprised if there was not a war.
Yeah, and so it's just one of those things where it's so I think it's interesting to play it that way, where it's no, he didn't really intend to do it. The dragons were both dragons were kind of out of control of their rider, where you have, Luke's dragon is obviously scared because there's a giant dragon that's 8 times as big as he is. And, so he does his fight or flight mode, and he realizes, he spews some fire at him, and that does not end well for Luke and his dragon. So I don't know. What do you think about that, Keith? Like, knowing the other way it could have gone.
Well, I feel like this is interesting. It's like the first time between the two series that you see like the dragons kind of have a mind of their own. It's not only there was a struggle between the two writers, but there was a struggle between the two dragons, and I don't really remember seeing that in the first series. So it's kind of interesting. It's like the writers kind of turns into like a Mustang driver. If you guys get that joke, how there's always a million videos of Mustang, Ford Mustang drivers losing control, and kind of felt like that moment there where he kind of, whoops, a little too far when we lost control there, a little too much throttle, and the dragons took over at that moment.
Yeah. So all that to say, I think all of us enjoyed the first season. I think I would feel comfortable saying that.
I did.
Except for all the injury. I'm just gonna throw it out there.
I mean, what do you expect? It's yeah. I mean, it's Game of Thrones, and it's the Targaryens. It's what they do.
Right.
But I will say that I think the show tried to paint both sides, but I think it is very clear by the end of the season. I think we are portrayed in a certain way that we're supposed to be rooting for Rhaenyra and her side. Like the Greens are more villainous. Alicent, yes, like she kind of maybe didn't intend for it to go this way, but she kind of is
at the same time, she doesn't want anything not going the way she wants it.
Yeah, she definitely wants her kids, but I mean, if you look at like the villains of the show, you've got your Otto, you've got your Kristin Cole, you've got your Aemond, and even Aegon, who is, just a spoiled, terrible, awful person, that are all on that side. And really on, Rhaenyra's side, on the side of the Blacks, it's, Damon's a wild card and he does some villainous stuff, but he's a lovable rogue. We love him. So I don't know.
Well, they even make that connection that they're more of the protagonists. Like when they were plotting, like, well, we should get married. Like, what about your husband? You're like, oh, they're about to kill that dude. And then you see that he's ran off into the place where you could go and start a new life, where Sir Kristin Cole could have gone instead of shanking himself in the garden, only to be stopped by Alicent. It was like literally 5 minutes ago you were just saying, hey, we can run off and start a new life, but since I bashed this guy's face in because I couldn't be with this woman, I'm just gonna do it right here.
Yep.
On the kingdom grounds.
Yeah, I definitely again, I want to know what transpired. Like why did he switch allegiances? What did Alicent say to him that that's, again, we already talked a little bit about what I felt was missing. That was definitely part of it. In terms of you're right. Like that scenario definitely paints us as Laenor, who we all kind of like. We are worried that they're going to kill him, and instead they just kill an innocent person and burn that body. Like, it's like they still killed
quick
someone.
Question: do you think that Rhaenyra will ever tell Princess Rhaenys and Corlys that she did that? Because I felt at some point that might would come up, because they're like, we want to be loyal to you, but you've done so much crap to us.
I think the moment to do that would have been when she was looking for support for her son, the Driftmark episode, where they were at court, like, and she even has that one-on-one with her in the Godswood, where she says, like, you killed my son, basically. And so if she was going to tell her, I think that was the moment. There's a couple characters we haven't talked much about that I do want to hit on real quick. One is Rhaenys, the queen that never was, because she was one of those characters that kind of was underutilized for me early in the season. But those last few episodes, man, I was like, man, I love Rhaenys. Like, she's awesome. She's so cool. I loved the way she came out. And then the other one
blossomed.
is
Yeah.
one other villain that we haven't mentioned at all, which is Laris Clubfoot Strong, who like murders his own family, is the creepiest guy around, like, you know, all that stuff. So, you know, what is
what fetish guy?
Yeah, like he's just and he's like always he's just got that like, you know, I don't even know how to describe him because he's always just trying to like insinuate himself into every situation. And you know, like even, you know, the first time we really encounter him is when he's telling Alicent about the moon tea that was brought to Rhaenyra, and he's just like, oh, she must have been sick. Oh, I'm so glad she's feeling better. And you're just like, this guy, he's the I don't like him.
He does it so passively too.
And then it gets worse.
Yeah.
So, but I mean, I guess talk about Rhaenys or Laris. You know, Keith. You know, anything stand out about them?
Rhaenys to me is the dark horse of the whole season. You know, quiet, reserved. You know, her husband's the one that kind of showed more color, more emotion and whatnot, and couldn't keep lost his experienced a midlife crisis and decided to go out and get shanked and go into a coma for a while.
So this is really interesting that you bring that up, because the knock on women for all of history is that they're too emotional, right? They're too emotional. They can't be in the position of leadership. They can't, because they're too emotional. And then you watch something like this and it's all the guys that are getting all super emotional and they're like, we gotta go to war, we gotta, do this. And it's Rhaenys and it's Rhaenyra and it's Alicent, who are like all like steady, and so like, yeah, that's all BS. It always has been, and it certainly is now.
But what's funny to me is with all the emotion he showed when she told him about his brother, and he's like, well, he called her a whore and did this and that, and then said this, and then Damon took his head. He's like, yeah, basically he reacted like, yeah, to comment,
yeah,
like, let's call it a day.
It's very true. All right, before we get out of here, season 1 now wrapped. They're gonna shoot season 2 beginning of next year, and we'll get that probably sometime in 2024. Way too long because we all want it
That's
now.
ridiculous.
But in terms of just like, usually Aaron and I will rate things out of 10. So this first season out of 10, how would you score it? We'll start with you, Keith.
I would go with 7.5, maybe 8.
All right.
I was gonna also say 8.
Yeah, I think I'll come in a little bit underneath you guys. I'll say like a 7, only because I think, again, it was a little bit uneven for the first half of the season for me, and then those time jumps really threw me off. If I was rating only the last 4 episodes, it'd be like a 9.5, maybe even a 10. Like those final 4 episodes were amazing. But anyways, those are our thoughts about season 1 of House of the Dragon. If you guys want to hear more reviews or catch news and stuff, you can check out all of our stuff at official GYGO. We do, movie reviews, game reviews, all kinds of stuff. We have a weekly podcast where we cover all the news and everything like that. You can check us out on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, basically any social media platform at official GYGO. So again, thank you guys for tuning in, for listening. Keith, Kristin, thanks so much for joining me, and we'll talk to you guys next time. Stay geeky.